Hello, everybody. I wanted to expand upon a previous video that I made about playing basic rhythm guitar. If you have time and you have a guitar sitting around, and you want to put some effort into learning how to play a simple song or just a few simple chords, then I could kind of point you in the direction that you would need to go in to be able to do this. The elements that I covered in the previous video were making chords with your with your left hand, pushing down your fingers in a certain spot, and learning to read a chord chart. Now, I wanted to expand upon that because I was playing G, C, and D back to G. This is called a triad, and a lot of there's a combination of three chords that sound good together. And a lot of times starting out with guitar, I found that G, C, and D is a good starting point, and the triad in G would start with the G chord and end back at the G chord. So, like in Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, the G would be the one, the first, the Do, and then Do, Re, Mi, Fa would be the four, Do, La, Ti, seven, and then G would be back to the one, which if you were playing a scale, it would start at a lower note and end up at the higher note. But it's the same concept when you're playing chords instead of single notes. In order to learn a basic chord like G, you got to know three basic things. And if you're looking at a chord chart, it's like a box with 6 lines across going horizontally, and then there's vertical lines which are representing the frets. So that way you can kind of know what to do, and then there's normally a circle there with a number on it, which should represent your finger. Your pointer finger is always number 1, middle is 2, ring finger's 3, pinky would be 4. A lot of the times, especially starting out, you're not going to use your pinky much for a chord. So in order to, if somebody was going to tell you how to play the chord, you'd have to know the string numbers, which you're going to learn backwards. The smallest string farthest away from you would be number 1. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The biggest string closest to you would be the 6th string. And then the frets is 1, 2, and 3, which is basically all where we're going to be right now. So you want to, if I told you to put your first finger on the 5th string on the 2nd fret, that would be the first step towards the G chord. Second finger, 6th string, 3rd fret. Third finger, 1st string, 3rd fret. And when you're making the notes, you got to push them down, you got to bend your fingers, try not to mute out the other strings, and when you're testing a chord out, play each string, and keep practicing until you can try to hear each string without it being muted out. It's also a good idea to bend your wrist, to use your thumb on the back to push down and to create the pressure to push the strings down. So that's G chord. Then you're going to have to learn to switch chords. That's why you start with just like 3 chords, because you got to commit them to memory. You got the chord chart to learn the chords, but the goal is to get it in your head and not have to keep looking at the sheet forever. So if I was going to switch from G to C, then first finger goes 2nd string, 1st fret, then 2nd finger moves to 4th string, 2nd fret, 3rd finger moves to 5th string, 3rd fret. And then if I was going to switch to the D chord, which would be the 5, the 1, 4, 5 in the triad, first finger would move to the 3rd string, 2nd fret, 2nd finger moves to the 1st string, 2nd fret, third finger moves to the second string, third fret, and creates like a triangle. And then back to G. There's plenty of videos out there if you need more help to learn those chords, but that's a basic rundown. If you missed that, just rewind, listen to that part again. But remember your finger numbers, string numbers, fret numbers, okay? That's what you're gonna always need to know to kind of have a reference when somebody's telling you how to do it. Remember to try to commit it to memory. Then with your right hand, holding a pick, bend your finger around, kind of sandwich it down there. If you're not using a pick, I'll just kind of strum down with all my fingers like that, or some people just like to use their thumb. With a steel string guitar, you're going to get a lot more volume out of the guitar by using a pick. So I definitely recommend learning to use a pick. Once you're able to do that, if you don't want to keep using it, that's kind of your personal decision, but it's better to know how to use it and not use it than to never have learned and then not use it. So, but anyway, back to the rhythm. Like, I usually kind of put my elbow on this edge of the guitar, and I'm holding it up kind of high. I would normally like kind of put the notch of the guitar down into my leg and hold it flat in front of me, but just for the sake of you being able to see better, I don't use my wrist so much when I strum. I use my elbow. Kind of keep, not too stiff, but just kind of keep your wrist straighter and let your elbow do the strumming work. First of all, I would count to 4. 4/4 time is definitely the easiest place to start to. So you just like count. Use a metronome. There's free applications like Soundburner, and you can buy cheap metronomes at the music store that have a click. Usually the first click is like a different tone, and the other 3 are like a lower or higher tone, so that when you start back over that the different tone is the restart point. But for this sake, I would just try to just use my own timing in my head and go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, and try to stick with the time that I set for myself. As a beginner, that's harder, but before you even worried about playing a chord with the timing, you might practice that. And then the big jump, when you're learning your chords, you got to learn how to switch your fingers to these different positions: G, C, D, and back to G. So as you start to memorize the chords, make a good middle note, look at your left hand closely, get that feeling where your hand just knows exactly where to go back to get to that chord. But then to actually put those two elements together, the chords and the rhythm, is the biggest jump for playing guitar, because to stay in time and change chords and play at the same time, you have to kind of jump. I call it like hopping at the last minute, because you're like 1, 2, 3, 4, jump. 1, 2, 3, 4, jump. 1, 2, 3, 4, jump. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you have to keep playing and holding that position up to the very last count, and then you're between the 4 count and starting back over at 1. All your fingers have to relocate to the right spot, just quickly. So starting out, you would probably start with a very slow count, so you give yourself more time to switch the position of your chord. So if you're like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you got all that extra time to 3 to get where you need to be. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, when you're first learning, don't worry about playing fast. Everybody's like, oh, it's just like instinctual to try to play fast, but don't worry about that. You know, when you're first learning anything, you just need to make sure you got the fundamentals in your head before you move forward to trying to do more complex stuff. So, I hope this has been helpful. I am teaching lessons online, some for the Jones House, and have been for a while now since everything lately. But I hope this is helpful, and I think we're going to have some videos up on the Jones House website. So hope that this helps someone out, and thank you for your time. Bye.